Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, coming back to you on this stormy afternoon in Washington, D.C. If you hear a bunch of banging and stuff going around, we're having a pretty good thunderstorm out there, and lots of thunder. And you can hear the local fire departments being sent out to go meet somebody in distress. Fire station's just down the street. But let's talk about what's going on. And I want to, first of all, thank everybody for being on here yesterday with us, where we talked about the End Persecution campaign. Campaign is beginning to really roll. We're getting a lot of different groups that are beginning to participate. It's a good thing. And so we are in a position now um, where we have an opportunity to really kind of do some good. And I'm going to put up the End Persecution campaign right now so you can see it and how to get to it. So, David, if you'd put up that End Persecution campaign, that'd be great. That link I sent you, that would be phenomenal.
Switch your screen view now. You just have to switch your view.
Okay. Apparently, I need to switch my screen view in order to have that pop up. So I am now switching my screen view, and you will now get something coming up shortly that will get you to what I want to talk about. The End Persecution campaign, I'd hoped we'd be at 1 million yesterday by close of business. We got to 500,000. We're about 500,000 right now. But the truth is, it's beginning to accelerate. And I'm hoping by the end of this little broadcast, we'll be able to get enough people sharing it and pushing it out on their various Facebook and other platforms that we'll end up with a dramatic jump just off of this little video podcast. We're going to keep this to half an hour. So, David, still need this thing to be. To show we're trying something here, okay? And here it is. Okay, here it is. He's putting him up, and I'm having to click buttons. So just me. I got it working, David. So, you'll see that this is the Align Act campaign that's been set up. If you go to Align Act, and we've sent the link around multiple times, but if you go to alignact.com, and just scroll down, you'll see the campaign looks just like this. Click on it and you'll be able to take action. So we strongly encourage people to do that. I wanted to show you what some of the reactions are right now in terms of how people are responding to what's going on. And that's our Breitbart. When you look at Breitbart, you'll see that, and I'm going to talk about Representative Scott Perry, the abuse of power by DOJ with that, but in a second as a follow-on to this. But you look at it and you see things like Kevin McCarthy condemns anybody who, go back to Breitbart, condemns anybody who is, any Republicans who are remaining silent and aren't yelling. Well, that's great. We've got you go to Breitbart.com and you'll see a whole series of stories of people condemning and the like. Here's the thing. The Democrats, the DOJ, don't care if Republicans condemn what they did because they know they'll go on about to the next shiny object tomorrow. What they care about is if they actually try to do something about it. And that's why this campaign, this End Persecution campaign on Align Act is so important. And go ahead and put that back up, David. That's why it's so important, because what we are trying to do here is deluge them with that, letting them know that America cares. This isn't just an opportunity to put out a snarky Twitter post and then move on. This is more than that. This is about ending this fundamental transformation of our judicial system, this fundamental transformation of our Attorney General's office, of our Department of Justice. Department of Justice no longer, under Biden, no longer cares about justice. They care about political expediency and political revenge and politically advancing their agenda. They care about trying to entrap President Trump into some high crime and misdemeanor to make him ineligible to be president of the United States, or to have him be impeached the minute he becomes president of the United States again. They care not one whit about the law or the rule of law. And as a result, the only way to rein them in is to have Congress tell them, by grabbing them by the only thing that Congress has, their purse strings, and dragging them over hot coals to justify the money that's allocated to them. And for the FBI divisions that are busily sending 300 officers into raid Mar-a-Lago, that's 300 officers that don't need to exist. You get right down to it. This requires a full proctology exam, and the power of the purse is how you do it. And the first step comes up in September, and we have to get these Republicans in Congress, the Senate in particular, to understand that they control the FBI. They control them through one tool and one tool only, and that is the check they write to them. And many of these Republicans just recently voted to expand the number of FBI agents, because after all, we need to fight. We need to fight for the home team. But it just shows such a lack of understanding about what's really going on. That's why getting millions upon millions of people pounding their email addresses saying, we need you to stand up and fight now. That's why this is important, because if we don't get it done now, while the heat's up, while they're focused on it, if we don't do it now, they will forget by September, and we're gonna have to keep the heat on them over time. But this is the first phase of an effort to force a real reckoning for this FBI, for this Department of Justice, for the Biden administration as a whole, for their political weaponization of our federal administrative state. And we saw it start under Obama. We saw with Lois Lerner going after Tea Party groups from the IRS. Now, Congress, the Democrats, with 50 votes plus one, just voted to add 87,000 new IRS agents, to dramatically increase the weaponization of the IRS. I mean, exponentially increase it. So these guys have to understand that this isn't just a tweet. This isn't a hashtag campaign. This is an actual legislative, legal war that they have been signed up to fight. And we need to let them know, as their bosses, what they need to do. Now, so please, anything you can do on the campaign, we have it up on our Get Liberty site, or on our Daily Torch site. You can click on the article there. We have it right here. If you go directly to allignact.com, you can find it right at the front page of that. But this is serious business. And this isn't just playing around the edges. This is about whether or not our country, whether or not we're going to be able to exist. With that, I want to go to Scott Perry. So if you would put up his bio, David, that'd be great. Scott Perry is a representative from Pennsylvania. He is a retired brigadier general from the Pennsylvania National Guard. He retired in 2009. He is and he's the head of the House Freedom Caucus. About 40 members of the House Freedom Caucus are basically the ones who stand up and say no every time something crazy is happening, and they are dedicated conservatives who are fighting every single day to try to keep America on the right path, or at least redirect it to the right path. Scott Perry is the head of the Freedom Caucus, and the FBI yesterday, while he was traveling with his family, approached him and confiscated his cell phone immediately following the raid on Mar-a-Lago. The next day after the raid on Mar-a-Lago, His cell phone has every text that he's had with other members of Congress in it. His cell phone has every email he's had with other members of Congress. This is the Department of Justice, the executive branch, does not have the authority to impede, to attack the legislative branch by using their weapon. There are no allegations he did anything wrong. Okay, by the way, none whatsoever. Scott Perry happens to be in a tough race for re-election in Pennsylvania CD4. It's a tough election. He's a guy who is who's a fighter, but he's not in a safe district. And this is an attempt to drag Scott Perry using lawfare through the mud before the election to defeat him in the election campaign and to be able to leak out any kind of texts or emails, private conversations he and others within the Freedom Caucus had. This is a direct attack on the legislative branch of government. It is wrong in every way. And the fact that Nancy Pelosi hasn't been stomping her feet about it is astonishing, because I'm going to tell you a secret. If this is the rule, if this is how the game's going to be played, then the first cell phone that should be confiscated in January 2025 is AOC's and Ilhan Omar's, Rashid, whatever the name is, Tlaib. Now he's a basketball player. Nonetheless, you get the point. We've got this, this is so dangerous. It is beyond dangerous. So, as I said, Scott he's a friend. He's a guy I know. I'm going to say he's a friend. I'm not going to show up in his text because I don't text with Scott Perry. I'm not going to show up in his Signal conversations because I'm not connected to him through Signal. I've met him on multiple occasions, but I don't claim to be, and I try not to be in any of these guys' real inner circles. So that's because then you can't criticize him. But just know that Scott Perry, can you put up his campaign page, David? That Scott Perry is in a tough race. This is designed to defeat him. He's one of the good guys. I did want you to be aware of his campaign page. His campaign page is, I think it's patriotsforperry.org, Patriots for Perry. And anybody who wants to check out more about Scott Perry and his campaign, I would encourage you to go to patriotsforperry.com and check it out. He is in a tough race, and they are now, and the FBI just entered the campaign, and understand that anything they find that they can leak that might be in any way embarrassing, they will do so. And we just have to know that this is in many respects, nothing more than a campaign, opposition research campaign effort by the FBI. And right now, I'll guarantee you there's a whole lot of members of Congress who are scrambling around, and other people in Washington, D.C. are scrambling around, ending their Signal conversations with people and deleting Signal conversations, because quite honestly, if it's secure communication, unless the FBI has one side of it, and in confiscating Representative Perry's phone, they got one side of it, assuming he wasn't having a time deletion on his Signal communications. So secure communications no more. It's all open record. FBI can take it. They can steal it. They can do whatever they want. And there's no repercussions unless Congress creates repercussions. Once again, that's why we've got to push back hard right now. Let's go to something a little more good news. There's the Fox News article. On the good news front, we have a win in the Vancouver, Washington, southern part of the state. The Republican Congresswoman voted to impeach Trump. I'm not going to, it's Herrera Bueller, Bueller Herrera. And she's not going to get to be a member of Congress anymore because she was just defeated in the primary. There's only been one member of Congress, Republican, who voted for impeachment who survived. That's Don Newhouse from Central Washington. And quite honestly, I don't think they ran a very good campaign against him. But but the fact is, what we have here is, I think it's 8 out of 10 now have been defeated, and Liz Cheney is up in about 10 days in Wisconsin and Wyoming, and she is. I think anybody who votes for Liz Cheney to be reelected in the Republican primary is pretty much has to ask questions about what they're doing voting in a Republican primary at this point. But that's a different story. We also have an extremely important race, a couple of races in Alaska. We have Lisa Murkowski up in a primary, and Donald Trump's endorsed against her, and I cannot, for the life of me, pronounce the name of the person who's running against her. It's Kathy something. But Lisa Murkowski faces a really tough primary. In fact, Lisa Murkowski was silently, quietly behind the scenes, changed the Alaska voting laws, got their state legislature to change the voting laws to make it so they have ranked choice voting. So Lisa Murkowski can be defeated in the primary, as she was 12 years ago, by the way. How life would have been different if Mitch McConnell hadn't intervened and made sure and helped Murkowski win a write-in campaign and help fund a write-in campaign for her 12 years ago. But she lost 12 years ago in a primary. It's very possible with the ranked choice voting that a majority of the Republicans could overwhelmingly vote against Lisa Murkowski for re-election. But if she's second on the ballot, what they do is they go and they check if it's who's second on the ballot. She doesn't get, whoever wins doesn't get 50% plus one. The question is who's second on the ballot. And so her thinking is, if she can get the votes of the Democrats, the people who vote for the Democrat Party, if they all put Lisa Murkowski second, then effectively the Democrats and the Murkowski Republicans can elect the nominee, can elect the senator, and the majority of Republicans will be cast out. So that's the way their system works. It's called ranked choice voting. It's a disaster. And Murkowski, it's being reported that she's behind the system because it's the only way she can survive in a primary in Alaska. You have Sarah Palin. Everybody remembers Sarah. Sarah Palin is running for the open congressional seat. Congressman Don Young, who had served for 40 years or so, a long time. By the way, he had the best office to go into because he had all this wildlife on the walls. It was like walking into Alaska. A lot of Indian artifacts and stuff like that. Or Eskimo artifacts or Native American artifacts. Pick your term. It was a spectacular office to visit, just because it was just the decoration was so cool. But Sarah Palin's running for that seat. She's being challenged by the nephew of the Democrat senator, the Democrat senator named Nick Begich, and so his nephew is running as a Republican against Sarah Palin. Donald Trump has endorsed Sarah Palin. The Alaska GOP has endorsed the nephew of the Democrat, and there's a couple of other candidates who are running. We will see what happens there, but it's, truth be told, it's a hard race to win, because when the Democrats can cross over and essentially vote for the Democrat and then vote for the crummier Republican, it puts a person like Sarah Palin in trouble. It helps the establishment, Lisa Murkowski, and quite honestly compromises her, because the Democrats in Alaska are not what you think they are. They are environmentalists. They're trying to shut down all development. They're opposed to mining in Alaska. They're opposed to drilling at Anwar. They're opposed to all those things that are necessary for Alaska's economic survival. They want Alaska to be a tourism state and nothing else, and don't realize that resource development is the key to Alaska's long-term security and future. And without resource development, Alaska becomes becomes exactly what it was described as when it was first purchased in 1867 as a folly. It was called Seward's Folly because the Secretary of State William Seward negotiated the deal to buy Alaska from the Russians. So they want to eliminate mining and they want to eliminate oil production. That's all well and good, but if they do that, they will be in deep trouble, both economically and quite honestly, it will go back to being a wasteland. And that's, Alaska is a beautiful state. It's great. It's a beautiful state. I encourage everybody to go, but your economy can't exist on tourism and tourism alone. So they need the resource development to survive. The Democrats are against resource development. Sarah Palin's drill, baby, drill. And quite honestly, if America needs Sarah Palin in Washington, D.C. And so I'm hoping that she will be elected as well. Let's go down to one last thing, and then I'll take some. I'm going to take some questions now. If you want to ask about inflation, if you want me to talk about inflation, feel free to ask about it. But if you don't want me to talk about inflation, I will not. Let's see here. I think a lot of people are sitting here, coming in and asking a lot of questions about the country being mixed up. It's we've had somebody ask, who cares? Okay, and I want to ask the question, who cares for what? It's because it's got a lot of responses on the comments. I think it's an important question. A lot of Americans don't care. But I will remind everybody that historians tell us that about 33% of the Americans supported the American Revolution. It was just slight majority supported the revolution. Many didn't care. Okay, King George III, George Washington, it's all the same to me. My life isn't going to change one bit because they didn't feel like they had a dog in the fight. And then many were royalists. They supported the king. They were doing quite well under the king. They liked the status quo, and the change scared them. It worried them. The experiment towards individual liberty was an experiment that was untested and was dangerous, and it was going into ground that we didn't know where we were going. And so it was very, so a lot of people, rightfully said, I want to work to change the system from within. I don't think this idea of breaking away is that great of an idea. And so, but we have a country because people cared. We have a country because of the people who did care. We have a country because those people were willing to put their lives and fortunes on the line for freedom, for individual liberty. That's, so the question is simple. It's a simple question. I ask myself it every once in a while. Why should I care? Why should I take the risk for my family, for myself, to be sitting here and doing this? Why don't I just go off and kind of go and do a normal life? And the answer is simple. Because freedom is worth fighting for. And that's why you should care. And freedom that's taken for granted is taken very easily. Freedom that's cherished is hard to take away. It's when we get comfortable that we lose the reasons that we are comfortable. because we don't recognize them anymore. We take them for granted. And one of the challenges as our country's, we're 245, 246 years in now from the Declaration of Independence. One of the challenges is that many of our younger people have absolutely no idea that what this great experiment's about, have no idea why they have all the cool toys they have. They have no idea why they get to say whatever they want to say. They can, march around and say stupid stuff, and nobody's going to abuse them. And the reason why is because our country cherishes freedom. The End Persecution campaign is essential to that. It's essential to making certain that we stop those who would persecute, we stop those who would abuse, we stop those who've lost touch, truly have lost touch in their zeal for their personal and political positions, have lost touch with what the essence of America is, and have forfeited their right to be protectors of our laws. We have a responsibility as Americans to stand up and care. If we don't care, if we say, gee, it doesn't affect me, I'm turning, let somebody else do it. Well, the problem with that is at some point, one of those 87,000 IRS auditors, somebody who's, you're going to end up finding yourself on the wrong end of a federal government, and you'll wonder, well, how it all happened. What happened because not enough people cared. So thank you folks for paying attention to this, because the people who are on here are the ones who do care. And our objective is to try to share the word a little bit, so others out there who may be struggling with the consequences of what's going on will be able to care as well, at least understand what's going on. I'm looking through a lot of the comments here. It's, we're all kind of on the same page here. I'm going to click on this because it's something I was talking to somebody the other day about, and it's a great challenge. We need to start with the new DOJ and FBI, and I agree. Our challenge is this. There are things going on. The FBI is doing a lot of things that are valuable to the country. They've lost their focus. They've lost their, in many respects, legitimacy at this point. But if you eliminate the entirety of the FBI, you eliminate the entirety of the Department of Justice, you effectively created an environment where there's no domestic federal law enforcement, which means there's nobody enforcing federal laws. And suddenly when an Antifa terrorist blows something up, all the people who opposed getting rid of the FBI see, this is what happens. And politically, the whole game changes, and you end up losing everything because dismantling the FBI in its entirety. You've effectively dismantled the capacity to stop terrorist action. And one of the problems we have is they've defined us as being the terrorists, and it creates a real conundrum on how to deal with it. And I'd be interested in hearing people's thoughtful responses on how we should do this, because quite honestly, I don't see a great answer in terms of how to fix this problem in a meaningful way. So I would encourage, I'll give you my email address where I can put it up on the screen, but it's rmanning@getliberty.org, rmanning@getliberty.org. If you have some thoughts on how to proceed, feel free to send them to me. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say, or put them up on the Facebook chat, the Facebook comment section, because I try to look at every night. and just see what some of the things or people are saying. But put it up because I really, there's a lot of smart people out there. All the answers don't come in Washington. I have no law enforcement experience. I have experience dealing with the law as it relates to criminal justice because of my NRA lobbying experience, but I've never been a field agent. I've never done any of that stuff. So any insights that people have who can share with me on how to proceed and what they think would work, that would be extraordinarily valuable, and I crave that information. Um, on the IRS agents, once again, this is a matter of the Republicans in Congress saying no. Republicans in Congress can and will and should tell the Biden administration, we're not funding these IRS agents. We refuse to. And they should they should put an amendment to shift the money, at least part of the money that's allocated for that in the budget, over to the border. And they should say, we'll increase the number of Border Patrol agents. We'll double the number of Border Patrol agents, but we're not putting 87,000 new IRS agents. We're putting 0 new IRS agents. So if you want to actually deal with federal law enforcement, we will double our border patrol. And you want to play, and that's the logical response. And it's my hope that we can convince Congress to do that. But once again, this is going to be you guys telling them exactly what you expect them to do. Let's see. Looking down. I'll give you a little bit on the inflation since there's an overwhelming desire to not hear it. Very simply on inflation, inflation went up by 0% according to in BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, in the last month. That's almost totally driven by gasoline prices, which have gone down, which everybody knows. But Joe Biden didn't have anything to do with that. The gasoline prices going down as a result of expectations on the world markets that we're in a recession. And so the very recession that Joe Biden denies exists is in fact the reason why gasoline prices have gone down. And but we still have the systemic problems, and what's more, gasoline prices are still significantly higher, about $2 a gallon higher today than they were when Joe Biden took over as president. So he can go and do all he wants in terms of talking about 0% inflation. Over the last year, inflation was 8.5%. Let me give you, and so it drops 0.6% in 1 month. What that means is, and this is, I'll just explain how the inflation tables work, because I used to work over there. In July of 2021, there was a inflation increase of 0.6%. That number got dropped off on the annual inflation rate. So that number goes away. And the number that they came up with for July of 2022 was 0%. Consequently, the consumer price index dropped 0.6%. That's how they figure it. So so that's what you've got. You got a 0.6% drop. Here's the irony: the inflation, the bill that they just did, the Inflation Reduction Act that doesn't deal with inflation. Moody's Analytics, which is a left-wing firm that does a lot of bond rating and stuff like that, their economics analytics department is run by a guy named Mark Zandi, who's a pretty big lefty. And Zandi did an analysis of the Inflation Reduction Act. And in his analysis, the entirety of that $700 billion act, with all the moving parts in it, it's all supposed to be an inflation reduction. The entire inflation reduction that this left-wing economist could come up with to try to justify the name of the act was a 0.3% adjustment in 10 years. Okay, 10 years from now, there's going to be a 0.3% lowering of the inflation rate. In 1 month, just by simply having a recession drive down the price of gasoline, in 1 month, we had a 0.6% drop in inflation. So once again, the irony is Joe Biden is sitting there going off and he's claiming, oh, we've solved inflation. And I guess if he wants to take credit for a recession, he can say he solved inflation. But since he won't acknowledge the recession, he doesn't get to say anything about inflation. But that's something just a little bit in the weeds stuff that I thought you guys might be interested in. With that, I'm going to kind of look down here and see if we're. I'm going to just encourage something here. I get frustrated, and I'm sure you do too. I get really, really frustrated at times about what's going on in this country. Sometimes I'll sit here and today I was just sitting here going, just frustrated about the direction and feeling kind of just depressed a little bit, quite frankly. I want you to know that your guys' response in terms of pushing for things like the end the persecution of Donald Trump, your guys' response on that is one of the encouragers that I get. It tells me that people care, that we're not just sitting here saying, what difference does it make? At which point, you sit there and you ask the question for your own life. What are you doing here? You guys, what you do serves as a great encourager to me, and I want to thank you. And with that, we're going to sign off before I get maudlin. And we will talk again tomorrow about whatever is happening. Probably a shorter broadcast tomorrow. But with that, have a great evening, and please push that Align Act campaign around, alignact.com, and it's right there on the front page. With that, signing off, Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government. Thank you very much for your support.